Listen carefully, because what I'm about to tell you will change how you interpret every sigh, every complaint, every cold silence from a woman who seems impossible to satisfy. And before anyone labels this as bitterness or misogyny, understand this. What I'm about to explain comes from years of watching relationships rise and implode. My own, my friends, even those that looked picture perfect on the surface. The patterns repeat with such precision that they might as well be natural laws. There's a mechanism running in the female psyche, installed long before adulthood, that makes genuine satisfaction rare, no matter what the situation looks like from the outside. And until a man understands this mechanism, he'll spend years apologizing for things that weren't his fault, trying to soothe storms he didn't create, and slowly eroding his own self-worth in the process. Trying to make a perpetually unhappy woman happy is like pouring water into a cracked vase. It all leaks out eventually. If you've ever been in a long relationship, you've probably felt that invisible shift. At first, she adored everything about you. Your ambition, your humor, even your flaws seem charming. Then, slowly, everything you do becomes wrong. You plan a date. It's not thoughtful enough. You stay home. You're too comfortable. You work late. You're emotionally distant. You rest. You're lazy. You can feel the goalposts moving, but you can't see who's moving them. Most men internalize this as failure. They think, if I just try harder, she'll finally be happy. But here's the painful truth. That's not how it works. Her dissatisfaction was there long before you showed up. You just became the canvas she projects it onto. I used to believe I could fix it too. For years, I thought every failed relationship was my fault. I wasn't romantic enough, then I was too romantic. I wasn't dominant enough, then I was too controlling. I wasn't emotionally available, then I was too intense. The more I adapted, the less stable the relationships became. Eventually, I realized that every woman I dated, different ages, cultures, and backgrounds, ran the same emotional script. The content changed, but the structure was identical. Happiness at the start, followed by creeping dissatisfaction that no adjustment could stop. That's when it hit me. I wasn't the variable. I was the constant witnessing the same psychological movie playing on repeat with different actresses. You see, the mechanism isn't built by you, it's inherited. A tangled combination of biology, upbringing, and culture that trains many women to chase a version of happiness that doesn't actually exist. Think of it like emotional software filled with bugs that keep replicating across generations. She believes something outside her, a man, a house, a ring, a lifestyle, will fill the void. But as soon as she gets it, the feeling fades. The satisfaction evaporates like mist, and the hunger returns, sharper than before. That hunger isn't for love or stability. It's for emotional stimulation, for the illusion that something more is always just out of reach. I remember a man telling me once, no matter what I do, it's never good enough. He wasn't exaggerating. He worked himself to exhaustion trying to meet his wife's shifting expectations, hoping that someday the complaints would stop. They never did. Because it wasn't about what he did. It was about what she felt. And feelings, when untethered from responsibility, become bottomless. This is the quiet trap countless men fall into, confusing female unhappiness with male inadequacy. They start believing they're the reason for her moods, and once that belief takes root, the relationship becomes emotional quicksand. The more you struggle, the deeper you sink. Here's what most men never realize. This dissatisfaction doesn't start in adulthood. It's not even about relationships. It's a symptom of a deeper psychological pattern, one that begins in childhood, long before you ever enter her story. That's why you can't fix it. You weren't there when it formed, and you can't rewrite a script that was written decades before your first date. The only thing you can do is recognize it for what it is, a pre-existing condition disguised as personal disappointment. But once you start seeing it clearly, everything changes. The constant criticism stops feeling personal. The emotional chaos stops feeling like your responsibility. You begin to see the architecture behind the behavior, the programming that keeps her perpetually reaching for something she can't define. That's the first real liberation for a man, realizing the problem was never him. And yet this understanding opens a much deeper question. Where does that programming actually come from? What creates this endless cycle of restlessness that so many women can't seem to escape? Because if it's not about you and it's not about circumstances, then something far more fundamental must be driving it. The answer lies buried deep in biology, childhood, and the world that raised her to believe dissatisfaction is normal. To understand why so many women live in a constant state of emotional discontent, you have to look beneath behavior, down to the foundation. No amount of logic or reassurance can change what was built into her long before you arrived. The first layer of this foundation is biological. Studies on temperament and personality have consistently shown that nearly half of our emotional tendencies are genetic. Some people are simply wired to see the glass half empty. It's not cynicism, it's chemistry. Their brains produce and process dopamine and serotonin differently, creating a natural bias toward noticing problems instead of peace. And yes, that wiring shows up more often in women than most men realize. They may have everything: security, affection, stability, yet their nervous system keeps scanning for what's wrong. That constant vigilance feels normal to them, even necessary. Happiness, on the other hand, feels suspicious, like a calm before the storm. I've seen it span generations. The grandmother who always found fault, the mother who carried the same edge of bitterness, and the daughter who swore she'd be different, yet ends up repeating the same script. You could give these women comfort, wealth, and devotion, and within months, they'll find something to criticize. It's not a conscious choice, it's an inherited lens. Their default emotional position is slight dissatisfaction. Schopenhauer once said, "Human life swings like a pendulum between pain and boredom." For many women, that pendulum never stops moving because stillness, contentment, feels unnatural. They've been neurologically trained to seek a problem the way a bloodhound seeks a scent, but biology only sets the stage. The real story starts in childhood. Almost every chronically unhappy woman I've met carries two invisible scars, one from her father, the other from her mother. The first is what psychologists call a father wound. Maybe he was distant, controlling, unpredictable, or emotionally absent. The result is the same. She internalizes the belief that men will always fail her. So when she grows up, that expectation becomes prophecy. Either she chooses men who confirm it, or she pushes good men until they do. In her subconscious mind, disappointment equals safety because it's familiar. As Jung observed, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. That's exactly what happens here. She doesn't realize she's recreating her past under the illusion of choice. The second scar comes from her mother. If her mother was perpetually unhappy, complaining, critical, or emotionally cold, the daughter learns that this is what womanhood looks like. She doesn't adopt happiness as a model because she never saw it. She absorbs complaint as her emotional language. Later, in adulthood, she speaks it fluently without realizing where she learned it. I once knew a woman who used to laugh about how she'd never be like her mother, bitter and resentful toward her husband. 10 years into marriage, she caught herself mid-sentence, saying the exact words her mother used to say. She froze. It was like hearing her own programming echo back at her. Because that's how deep it goes. What feels like personality is often just inheritance. This is why so many men misread female dissatisfaction as rational criticism. It isn't. It's habit, emotional muscle memory. From the outside, it looks like she's reacting to you, but she's really reacting to a familiar emotional environment she's unknowingly recreating. And because her subconscious craves familiarity over happiness, she'll sabotage calm to reestablish the tension she grew up around. That's why peace feels uncomfortable to her. The moment things are good, she starts searching for cracks. If she can't find one, she'll create one. Her nervous system associates conflict with safety. It's tragic, but it's real. Now, layer this with cultural conditioning and you have a perfect storm. Modern society didn't just fail to heal these wounds, it monetized them. From childhood, women are fed stories that amplify the gap between fantasy and reality. Disney tells them that love should feel like fireworks every day. Instagram tells them that happiness is luxury and attention. Therapists tell them that all unhappiness is trauma, never accountability. So, by the time a man enters the picture, he's competing not with another man, but with an idea, an idealized version of life no one can live up to. The result? Chronic disappointment, justified by the illusion of empowerment. She tells herself she's just holding high standards, but those standards aren't grounded in reality. They're born from comparison and unresolved pain. And the more the external world fails to match her internal fantasy, the more she doubles down on the belief that something or someone must be wrong. That's how the mechanism keeps running. But if biology wrote the code and childhood built the framework, modern culture became the operating system, one designed to keep her endlessly chasing an image she can never catch. And that's where things take a darker turn. Because now, dissatisfaction isn't just inherited, it's incentivized. It's what makes her feel alive, validated, even admired, and the system around her profits from keeping her that way. Now we reach the layer that no one wants to talk about, the cultural programming that turned female unhappiness into both a lifestyle and a currency. From the moment a girl can dream, she's told she deserves a cinematic life, passion like in the movies, a partner who reads her mind, a home straight from Pinterest, and a sense of self-worth defined by applause. Reality, unfortunately, doesn't offer any of those guarantees. And when the ordinary replaces the ideal, dissatisfaction blooms like mold in a dark room. I once knew a woman named Anna, beautiful, sharp, ambitious. She married a man who adored her, provided for her, and treated her with kindness. 6 months in, she confessed she felt trapped, not because anything was wrong, but because it wasn't what she imagined. She thought marriage would fill the quiet spaces inside her, heal the wounds she never acknowledged, make her feel complete. But when she realized she still felt the same internal emptiness, the same restlessness, the same doubt, she redirected that disappointment toward him. "He's not romantic enough," she said. Then later, "He's too predictable." Then, "Maybe I settled." What she was really saying was, "He didn't fix what I refused to face." That projection, mistaking internal emptiness for external inadequacy, is everywhere now. Social media supercharges it. Every woman scrolls through an endless stream of curated perfection. Engagement rings the size of planets, luxury vacations, partners who never argue, houses bathed in sunlight. She doesn't see the editing, the debt, the deception. She only sees her own reality, messy, imperfect, human, and feels cheated. Her subconscious whispers, "Why does everyone else have it better?" It's a quiet poison. And once comparison sets in, gratitude dies. It's not just envy. It's expectation inflation. Every milestone is devalued the moment it's achieved. The same psychology that drives consumerism drives emotional dissatisfaction. She wants the boyfriend, gets him, and instantly wants the engagement. Gets married, now wants the fantasy honeymoon. Has that, now wants the dream home. It never ends. I call this the devaluation loop, the emotional law that says once a desire is fulfilled, its perceived worth drops by half. It's why new cars lose value the moment they leave the lot, and why affection, stability, and devotion lose their shine once she has them. Her brain adapts so fast to comfort that she mistakes it for boredom. What once felt like love now feels like monotony. The tragedy is that this pattern doesn't just ruin relationships, it ruins her capacity for joy. She confuses emotional novelty with happiness, and when a good man stops being exciting, she assumes love has died. The irony is, she's chasing a chemical high, not a connection. As Nietzsche warned, he who has a why to live can bear almost any how. But when your why is constant stimulation, the how, daily life, routine, imperfection, feels unbearable. Worse still, society rewards this dissatisfaction. It sells it back to her as identity. The self-love industry tells her that her unhappiness means she's outgrowing him, not that she's avoiding growth herself. Influencers turn complaint into content and pain into performance. They tell her to never settle, to find someone who matches your energy, to cut off anyone who doesn't make you feel amazing. Sounds empowering, until you realize it leaves her perpetually alone, perpetually unfulfilled, perpetually chasing the next emotional hit. The algorithm thrives on unhappiness. Peace doesn't trend. And then comes the mask. Many women learn early that authenticity doesn't get attention, performance does. So they become actresses. They act chill when they're controlling. They act affectionate when they're calculating. They act agreeable when they're resentful. And the longer they wear that mask, the more suffocating it becomes. When she finally removes it, usually after the wedding or years into commitment, What emerges isn't freedom. It's anger. Anger at the act she had to maintain. Anger that he didn't see through it. Anger that being herself feels unsafe. This mask rebellion cycle is devastating. I've seen women break down crying because they no longer recognize who they are in their own relationships. They say, "I don't even know what I want anymore." And that's the honest truth. They don't. Their desires were manufactured, their expectations borrowed, their discontent inherited. What they call empowerment is often just exhaustion in disguise. Carl Jung once said, "The greatest tragedy of the family is the unlived lives of the parents." Many women are living not their own lives, but the emotional leftovers of their mothers and the fantasies of their culture. They're haunted by stories of what happiness should look like, while completely disconnected from what it actually feels like. But the illusion doesn't stop there. Modern ideology has added another layer, one that feels like liberation, but secretly feeds the cycle. It's the idea that women are superior, flawless, owed devotion, and above accountability. The world calls it empowerment. But the truth? It's emotional self-sabotage disguised as self-worth. Here's where the illusion becomes irreversible, when unhappiness stops being a feeling and starts becoming identity. The cultural narrative tells modern women they are queens, goddesses, celestial beings who deserve everything simply for existing. It sounds empowering, but it's poison disguised as praise, because the moment you start believing you're beyond criticism, you stop evolving, and growth is the one ingredient happiness can't exist without. When a woman sees herself as superior to the man she's with, as the prize he must eternally win, she unconsciously creates a hierarchy, not a partnership. And here's the paradox. You can't love what you secretly look down on. You can't respect what you believe exists to serve you. So the relationship becomes transactional. He performs. She judges. And both lose the very intimacy that could have made them happy. I once met a woman who used to say, "All men are dogs." She said it with a smirk, like it was empowerment, but you could feel the bitterness behind it. She went through relationship after relationship, each one ending in the same loneliness she swore was freedom. She couldn't see that her contempt wasn't protecting her, it was isolating her. Every time a man treated her well, she distrusted it. Every time one disappointed her, she felt validated. The loop fed itself endlessly. That's the hidden cost of superiority. It destroys connection, and with it, the possibility of real happiness. Then there's what I call the princess paradox. From childhood, little girls are told they're special, unique, destined for magic. And that story feels wonderful until it collides with adulthood, because reality isn't a fairy tale. Her castle is a 2-bedroom apartment. Her Prince Charming snores, forgets the laundry, gets tired after work. The story collapses under the weight of normal life, and instead of adapting the story, she resents reality. She mistakes maturity for disappointment. The routine, the quiet, the ordinary joys of partnership, they all feel like failure compared to the fantasy. And that resentment doesn't just dissolve, it metastasizes into chronic dissatisfaction. Then comes the modern myth that's been sold to women like scripture. You can have it all. Career, motherhood, beauty, wealth, freedom, romance, simultaneously, effortlessly. It's a comforting lie because it denies the existence of trade-offs. But reality is built on trade-offs. Every path chosen closes another. The woman who devotes herself fully to career may find success but feels the ache of family life she postponed. The one who builds a family often mourns the ambitions she put aside. The one trying to do both ends up exhausted, convinced she's failing at everything. I've spoken to countless women who whisper the same line with trembling honesty. I did everything right, and I still feel empty. They don't realize the promise was impossible from the start. The myth didn't liberate them. It enslaved them to perfectionism. And then, to make matters worse, the therapy culture arrives, promising healing, but often deepening the self-absorption. Instead of gratitude or accountability, they're taught to pathologize every discomfort. Every argument becomes emotional abuse. Every unmet expectation becomes trauma. Instead of learning resilience, they learn new vocabulary to justify blame. I once knew a couple where the woman had been in therapy for a decade. She wasn't healing. She was refining her complaints. She learned to label every disagreement as gaslighting, every tired silence as emotional neglect. The therapy didn't make her self-aware, it made her professionally dissatisfied. And what's the result of all this? A generation of women for whom unhappiness has become home. They bond through complaining, connect through shared victimhood, and define their worth through the problems they can name. Happiness feels foreign, even threatening, because it would mean letting go of the identity that gives them validation. Being unhappy has become who they are. The world rewards it with attention, sympathy, and social capital. And if unhappiness gives you all that, why would you ever let it go? Meanwhile, the men in their lives, good men, slowly deteriorate under the weight of trying to fix what they didn't break. I've seen it too many times. Strong men, competent men, reduced to walking on eggshells in their own homes, apologizing for existing, analyzing every sentence before they speak. They think love means constant repair. They think patience will earn peace. But you cannot rescue someone from the comfort of their own misery. You cannot fill a void that was carved long before you arrived. The most painful truth, and the most liberating one, is this: you can't make an unhappy woman happy, not with money, not with romance, not with effort. If she was miserable before you, she'll be miserable with you, and she'll remain miserable after you. Because unhappiness born from unresolved identity isn't cured by affection, it's cured by awakening. And that awakening is her responsibility, not yours. So if you find yourself trapped in that cycle, constantly explaining, constantly adjusting, constantly walking through an emotional minefield, remember this: her unhappiness is not your cross to bear. You didn't cause it. You can't cure it. The only thing you can do is stop trying to fix what's designed to stay broken until she chooses to rebuild it herself. That's not cruelty, that's clarity. It's the only way to reclaim your sanity, your strength, and your peace. Because understanding this won't make her happy, but it will free you from the illusion that you ever could. And once a man stops trying to heal what doesn't want healing, he becomes untouchable.